Hi everyone, am I audible? Can you all see me?
Yes, Sakshi, you are audible.
Okay, great. I think we have a good participation now, so we can get started. Let me go back to my slides. Okay, great. So, hi everyone to the session. Thank you so much for joining on a Saturday afternoon. I hope you guys are doing well. I'll briefly start. So today we are talk about what all aspects that you want to cover when you are interviewing for all these big tech companies, and I'll try to give as much and I'll try to share as much experience as I can with you guys. And then towards the end I'll also talk about that how I personally as a mentor, in our one-on-one long-term mentorship, how can I be able to, you will be able to leverage from my experience, and how you can really succeed in any of the roles that you're looking for. So I'll start with a brief introduction about myself. So I am Sakshi. I am currently a software engineer at Microsoft. I also interned at Microsoft in the summer of 2020, and I really had a good exposure to work with a large variety of tech stack and everything. And then from there, after a set of interviews, I will be also talking about my interview experience with Microsoft, and also how I have prepared myself for other tech companies. So yeah, so I received a pre-placement offer. And then talking about my educational background, so I graduated from the Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati, with a major in mathematics and computing. And I have appeared for, and I have cleared loops for a lot of these multiple FAANG companies, and also a lot of fintech companies, both within India and abroad. So I think I have grinded it out, and I would and I think it would really be helpful for me as well, and it would be really satisfying for me as well to be able to impart that knowledge as much as I can, so that I can make you guys life of you guys easier a little bit. So yeah, that's my goal. And living towards that goal, I have been very passionate about mentoring, because personally I think I have very much benefited from mentoring throughout my entire journey. So so I have mentored around 3500 sorry 35K plus students through multiple live series and YouTube videos and everything. So yeah, really looking forward to this session. And I would just like to call out, at any point we would love to keep it as interactive as possible. So at any point, if you have any questions, I'll be taking pauses. So I'll be very, very happy to answer any of your questions. Or if there's any topic, let's say, that you want me to particularly drill down on, then please let me know. If the pace of the session doesn't suit you, if you want me to go faster or slower over anything, then also please let me know. It's about you, it's about how much help or knowledge or support that you can seek from this. So let's make it about that. Sure. Thank you for yeah, thank you for thanks for listening to that. And then now I think we'll start with our interaction. So I would love to know that what current experience you guys are coming from, and what companies are your target companies, which companies are you looking to target. So I think so if you see towards your right, below right side on the meeting window itself, you will be able to see some polls that are going live now. I would love you guys. I would love if you guys could just interact there, and so that I can also understand that what sort of audience that I'm talking to, and I can probably pace the session in that manner. Okay, great. So I see a lot of responses coming in. We have a good mixture of students and working professionals. There are some of the people, yeah, and in the target companies, I mostly see a lot of votes going for product-based companies or man companies, and some of the people also are looking for service-based companies or any other roles. Okay, so right, so I think especially for the people who are targeting product-based and man companies, this is going to be very, very helpful. And even for service-based companies, I think the goal or the criteria that they're looking for is pretty much similar. So I think you're really going to benefit from this session. And right, so I see a mix of working professional and students. So I'll keep it. I'll try to touch base on the basics and how you can get started, because I see a majority of people who are freshers and students. But please let me know again if there are if there's anything specific that you want to drill down on. I would love to talk about it. So let's move ahead. So what all will we cover in this session? So in this session, first of all, I will go over what are the key what are the key skills required for you when you are appearing for these technical interviews, how I will handhold you through all of these, like how I can help you whenever you are preparing for these, because there are a bunch of things, right? DSA is a major part, but there are a bunch of other things also that these companies require for you to be good or well versed with. So how I will be able to help you with all those preparation, and then how specifically I prepared, how I was able to from the scratch, how did I prepare, and how could I go up to landing jobs and offers from all of these big tech companies. And then I'll briefly touch upon what are the key things that you need to look in your resume and projects. What do these companies even ask? Making a project is one thing, but how do you prepare for an interview, and how do you present a project in an interview? What sort of questions are expected for you to know? I'll cover that. And then when you are inside an interview, how do you tackle a question? So preparing and coding a question on an ID is one thing, and then tackling that question in an interview is another ball game. Like there are a lot of other things that go in when you are tackling that and then talking to the interviewer to tackle a question, right? So we'll talk about that. And then what are some of the X factor things? What are some of the things that, so personally it's been 2 years for me at Microsoft, and I've seen sort of the both sides of the table, right? Like being on the interviewer and the interviewee side. So I know that there are few things that apart from all these online resources and your books will teach you, but there are few things that these interviewers look for, and what are these things and how can we prepare, like how you and I can prepare for these key things that are also integral for you to get through that loop. Now right, so I'll briefly talk about my journey, how I prepared, and how I was able to crack all of these big techs. And then in the last, I'll be talking about what all will you guys be offered in this long-term mentorship that we will be having, and how we will progress through each step, how I will be there for you both, probably both technically and also emotionally throughout this journey, and how we can make it a success for you. So right, and we'll try to keep a check on the time. Based on the time constraints, we might load balance covering the topics, but this is the gist that I want to cover with you. I hope everything looks good. Let me start with the first topic then. So for your technical interviews, of course you will require data structures and algorithms. Even if you are a working professional, even if you are 1 to 5 10 years also into the industry, then also data structures, you will have at least one round of data structures and algorithms. And especially if you are a fresher, then it will be heavily based, at least 2-3 rounds will be for data structures and algorithms. After that, there are few companies that might ask operating systems, networks, database management. So these are very, very key core CS fundamental topics. And even on your, these are some of the topics, theoretical topics that you might be also using on your day job. So I think some of the companies, especially for freshers and intern people who are not might be looking for a full-time role yet, they might be looking for an internship opportunity, then these core fundamental CS topics become important. And apart from that, there is a very important topic called as object oriented programming concepts. So I think this is one of the most used topic for me when I actually became a software engineer. Object oriented programming, I think, was one of the most used topic, maybe probably even more than data structures algorithms. So the companies, especially during the internship season and everything, and when I was applying as a fresher, I think these companies really focused on that. And then if you are applying for, let's say, like I mentioned, that I also have experience with interviewing with some of these fintech companies, so they might be also looking at, they might be also asking some mathematical puzzles or quantitative aptitude based questions, both in their written test and in their interviews. And last, the system design round. So I'll tell you about my experience. So at least within India, I have not seen these companies having a dedicated system design round. But if you apply abroad, then there are few companies that have a dedicated system design round even for the freshers. But the expectation there would be that it's not like you should be knowing the high level system design concepts to a very great extent. You should be well versed with at least, like, let's say if even in the domestic interview rounds, right, how they would include system design is that, let's say if I give you a problem, if I give you a string problem, then you come up with a solution for that. But now let's say if I have to scale that solution, if the string is such that it does not fit into memory, then you have to basically scale that solution. So one solution that you could propose is that you will divide your solution across distributed systems. You will divide that string into smaller chunks and then do computation on each part, and then aggregate the result, right? So there might be a touch of system design little bit here and there, just to understand that, basically to understand your problem solving, because data structures and algorithms is also a very good metric for you to showcase your problem solving. But in the real world scenario, the system design concepts and scaling of things becomes a little bit more relevant. So they might be just interested to know like how do you solve such a problem. So right, so like you can see that there are so many topics to cover, and at like personally also I used to get so overwhelmed. So like having a guided mentor, how it can help is, like I mentioned, that all these topics do not have as much weightage. And first of all, it also might depend, like based on the company that you're applying to, these weightages might vary a lot. So there is one more thing, like some companies, I'll cover it maybe a little bit towards the end, or like just in the next slide also, but I'll talk about it here also. Some companies focus a lot, as much as 50% on their on their values, and some of the companies call it as leadership principles. So how much focus you want to put in for a specific company, if you have a mentor who has gone through that entire process, I think it really helps you. Because of course you have to do the hard work, but you also have to do the smart work, right? So for you to understand that which topic holds how much weightage at this point, and what are the correct resources for, let's say for object oriented programming, there are ton of resources, there are ton of topics, like theoretically it would never end. But there are certain very key important key concepts that are very frequently asked. So for you to understand that, and to not get overwhelmed, and to not put your energy into things that might not be that much important, because right, so that way I think it really helps to have a mentor who can really guide you towards the very minute resources. And so that you can, because when you're preparing, you're also preparing mostly on a time crunch. You have few months, or let's say a year or so, right? So you really need to be very selective and very you cannot be very vast with the resources that you are using. So right, so I hope that makes sense. For now I will move to the next slide, but after the next slide I'll surely take a pause and see if there are any questions. Okay, great. So the next thing that I will cover is I'll focus on how to prepare for DSA. So the first question, since a lot of you guys are freshers, so the first question that I get asked a lot of times is, which language should we start from? So right, so I would say that if you have not started, like if you have not really picked up any first language, then maybe you would want to look at C++ or Java. Because why I think so personally is they really help you understand the object oriented programming concepts in a very thorough level. But if you have already picked a language, so I'll just tell you that these companies are like very, very language agnostic. And like for example, I remember I was giving an interview in C++, and the interviewer had never coded in C++. He had a background from Java, which is also like pretty much tactically I think similar to Java. But yeah, he did not have any background in C++ ever, and he was taking my interview in C++. So these companies are pretty much language agnostic and okay with, I think, whatever language that you are using. So if you've already picked the language, just go for it. But if you have not, maybe you would want to look at C++ or Java as your as a language that you might want to try. So that's first thing. Then other thing that I really guide my mentees on, and I always tell my mentees, is that whenever you are coding, right, don't just don't just make it your goal on the number of questions. Like always look for other ways and optimal approaches. So all these platforms, whichever platform that you are coding on, you will have these discuss forums and like all of these like where other people put like their solutions and they put more optimal approaches towards things, towards the question. So I think this has greatly helped me, because in these interviews you don't really like, you will not get a very new question. You will get maybe some modification or some some slight modification or an optimization of a standard question only. So when you have looked at a question from like 4 or 5 perspectives, 4 or 5 ways of solving the same question, when I pose a similar question to you, you get less scared. You feel like you have seen this question, you have seen this concept so much that you are familiar with that concept. And then don't just look at that solution, actually go ahead, code that solution, get accepted on all test cases for that solution also. So at the end of the day you might feel that okay, I just did 3 questions, but if you're doing 4 ways of solving one question, you are effectively doing 12 questions, right? So don't ever quantify the number of questions. Always quantify the number of approaches that you are able to build. Like when you look at a question, how many approaches come to your mind, how many options you are able to think of that this might be a good approach to do this certain question. Okay, and one more thing is, all of these platforms have this daily challenges uh, for consistency. And here again, like how a mentor can help you is like, if you have somebody like, so I'll talk about it in detail also later, but let's say if you have somebody who is giving you timed assignments and also following up with you, not in a bad manner, but just for an accountability and for a consistency sake, then I think it really helps you also stay motivated, right, towards your goal. And towards the other thing that I would really want you guys to keep in mind is, don't use like autofill IDs. A lot of these platforms have these autofill IDs where it just code completes for you. So don't use that, because like all these big companies like Google and like even like Microsoft and all of these companies, they will have either very primitive ID, and even if they have a very standard, like even like let's say Bloomberg and Apple. So all of these companies, whenever they are interviewing, they might have, even if they have an ID, it will be very primitive. They will like switch off the code complete and everything, or else they will take your interview either on paper, whiteboard, or just a plain talk. So in that case, you are not helped with any indentation. And if you have a practice of like code complete and everything, if you don't remember, like it is not really a make or break if you don't remember how to initialize a priority queue, but it really puts a good impression if you know your syntax, if you know your language, right? So if you have that motor memory with you, how to initialize everything, and if you've not really been assisted by all of these things, it really helps when you are showcasing that in your interview. It really boosts your confidence also. Like let's say if you're not able to remember that, okay, how is a priority, then it can really put your confidence down, and it can really distract you from the actual problem solving. So I would highly recommend that write each bit of code like from on your own. So okay, I think I have covered quite a bit till now. Let me take a pause and see if there are any questions. Okay, fine. The recording video, yes, you guys will be getting the recording video. Okay, faster, yeah, sure. Okay, I'll just get a little more crisper. Are there any other questions? Okay, any resources for DSA? So yeah, I can probably talk about like how I started, right? So for me, I started from GFG level. Like there was this at the time there was this free DSA course of 1 week or 10 days. I started from there, and then I used to practice. And like I said, right, I always used to look for the other approaches. I used to read articles on GFG and everything. So I started from there, and then yeah, and then I moved to a very good resources interview bit for freshers and like who is starting, because interview bit has a very limited amount of questions, but it covers all the buckets. All the common questions are covered there. So interview bit end to end, like all the questions of all the buckets, I think twice at least. I have like once I did the entire bucket, like all the buckets, and twice like the second time I revised all of the questions. So that really gave me a confidence that given any topic, at least the standard questions, right? The basic questions I'll be able to solve. And I think that was my preparation. I had started with a little bit of lead code at that time, but not a lot. So that was my preparation till the internship season. And then after that, like when I started applying, and then when I started getting calls from like within India for more senior roles and like even from abroad, then I mostly shifted to lead code. Lead code, I prepared quite extensively. Like so at lead code, I think they have a very cool feature of this company specific tag. Like I was sharing Lead Code Premium with some of my friends, and then from there I started like doing company specific questions only. If you don't have a specific company in mind, you can do bucket wise also. But I think company specific prep really helped me in like clearing and getting through all of these interviews. So and it also gives you, because in company specific, like we might say that it might not matter, but if you start like solving questions, and if you solve like 100 questions, right, then you start to recognize patterns that this company is looking for. Like at least there will be just not more than 5 to 6 buckets, right, that that these companies are asking questions from. So okay, right. So yeah, I think I'll give more weightage to your questions, right? So I do have an agenda, but it really makes sense if I'm asking your like if I'm answering your question. So let's just go ahead and do that. Okay, I think I answered the resources for DS, and then yeah, from there, like quite typically I have been following lead code as a major resource only. Like uh, uh okay, example of data, like I think you're trying to ask like what sort of data structure question might be asked in an interview, right? So in an interview, the problem will not directly be uh, like uh, like it will not directly be in form of the data structure that you're expecting. Let's say it's like the question says that there is a uh, okay, there is a malware computer, and then that computer is connected to some other computers, right? And then the malware transfers to one computer to another at a certain rate, or like let's say the next day the malware transfers, or you are given the connectivity between computers, and you just need to now understand that which all computers will be affected towards like the end of the day, like after n days. So what sort of data structure, like they have nowhere mentioned that like what data structure you need to use underneath, but from the word problem you need to realize that they're talking about like computers connectivity, so it has to be a graph problem, right? You're given all the edges of the nodes, and you need to basically find the basically secluded connected components. That's the question, right? Connected components, that's a very standard question, but you need to deduce that from the word problem, right? So these are the sort of questions that are asked. It will be an ambiguous, first of all it will be an ambiguous word problem. Like they will not give you all the so they will not give you all the questions that you might be looking for. They want you to come up with like clarifying questions. That's very important. Right. So not only about mang but respect to all product companies, I think this preparation is very much standard to any product mang service based company. So I think this preparation is very much standard to all of any technical interview, any technical coding round that you're appearing for. So I think that's exhaustive. Uh, DBMS, yeah, I mean, not probably as important as like data structures and algorithms, but I have seen questions like, but I think if you just like for till internship season, I was not very much. Till internship season, I was not very much well versed with database management, so I told my interviewer right away that this is a topic that I have not covered, like I'm still early in career. So like so then he's moved on and started asking about other things. But it is really good that if okay, if you're mentioning DBMS on your resume, then they would expect you at least, if you're mentioning DBMS or MySQL on your resume, they would at least expect you to know how to do the basic table operations, or what are the basic table queries and everything. If you're not mentioning on your resume, then I think you still have like a leeway at least till the internship season. But till placement season, I think then yeah, there might be an expectation for you to know at least standard SQL queries. And I don't think it takes a lot of time. It will, if you have seen it before in your life, it will not take more than an hour or 2 hours just to revise all the queries. So okay. So how much time you gave on your coding and DSA? So I had prepared in chunks. Like for internship season, I think I prepared for around a good 4 5 months, and then after that, after that, when I had another loops and everything, like when I had appeared for another set of loops, then it was another stretch of like 4 or 5 or 6 months. So there's not really a number. I mean, of course, with practice and that you get better. Consistency wise, I think, like I mentioned, right, I used to do all of these daily challenges. And if you have really a goal set in your mind, like there's a certain company or there's a certain compensation, there's a certain role, right, that you're looking for, I think then it really becomes very natural to you for you to work for it every day. So like I mentioned, right, when maybe toward in the college I was not very company specific, but after that, when it became about, like, let's say a set of companies, then I would just do company specific questions from all of these platforms. So that really used to really keep me motivated, that okay, I'm getting a hang of these questions now, and it used to make I used to become more confident every day. So that is what I think kept me going. Like, it was a cycle of practicing and then getting confident, and then practicing more and then getting more confident in all of these questions. So when you'll start to read all these interview experiences and everything, you will start when you will start, you will not be able to understand what approaches are coming, like what approaches would be suitable. But after, let's say, 1 month, when you are again going through the interview experiences, and now you are actually able to think through the solution, that is, I think, a very good booster for you to just keep consistent. uh Okay, which type of projects we can build in React for SD role? So, okay, I was going to cover that a little bit, but I think I'll just go over the questions now. So, a few things that you can keep in mind is, try to have at least some entity which can do, like, at least have one, like, database, right? Database that your project is connected to, and then you are doing the CRUD operations on some entity. So CRUD operation is create, read, update, delete. So, like, because that is what you will be doing in your role also. And then if you are able to do some project based on some API integration, I think that really helps. So these are the technical front of things, like, like that, these things that you can look for in your project. You can build, I would recommend that you build a project that really serves a real life scenario. Like, I can talk about one example from my college, that these people built this attendance tracking app. Like, tracking your attendance is a very big, like, headache in college, right? And some of these courses have like 75% attendance mandate and everything. So it actually went ahead and got some DAO is like daily active users and monthly active users from the college. So if you're building something like that, that is something really good. Some basic projects, like projects that I have made, like I mentioned, like blog post and like some campsite website or like something like that, right? And then the and then, like, maybe some to-do list, right? So these are very, very good. The tic-tac-toe game, so these are very good standard projects that you can start from in months, like React.js and everything. uh Right. So I think, I hope I answered that question. Please, but please let me know. You can just put your question in a more minute manner, so that I can answer it better. Okay, how much DSA and system design weightage is there for 3 year experienced developer? I think for 3 years there might be like so system design also has like two nuances, right? Low level and high level. So if you're a fresher, there might be not that much weightage on high level, but I think if you're 3 year experience, then there might be at least 2 rounds. I think at least I think it might get 50-50 after you have 3+ year experience regarding DSA and system design. And even in system design, they might expect you more of, they can keep 1 round on low level and I think 1 round on high level. This is what I've heard from my seniors and everything. So that's what I'm sharing from my experience. uh Communication skills matter. Yeah, for sure they matter. Like I mentioned, that practicing a question on lead code versus tackling that question in an interview, it's entirely different. You have to always think out loud. You have to, like, you have to always talk, and you have to always, like, talk. If even if you're stuck, you have to communicate that to your interviewer, right? So communication skills do matter. Your thought process, how you're thinking, because ultimately, as a software engineer, you have to, you cannot just isolate yourself in a room, in your cubicle, and solve a problem. You have to collaborate with your teammates. You have to get together, find a solution to something, right? So unless you have that ability to communicate, you will not be able to do that good for your team and for your company. So I think that's why it really matters. That's why uh, like bringing the point in the bigger picture. That's why mock interviews really matter. And like I mentioned that I have personally very much benefited from mock interviews. A lot of like I would feel at a point that I'm entirely prepared, and then I would go for mock interviews, and then the entire round would just like go for a toss. So that's where I think you and I would also be like really working towards that goal of having as many mock interviews as possible, because I used to find it very difficult to find people, to take my mock interviews. It used to be very difficult for me to do that. So I think you guys really have that liberty to have that platform and to be able to really have that conversation, have those mock interviews, because I think that they really, really help. Okay. Best suited language, I think I already talked about that. Revise DSA when you are practicing itself, just mark some question. Like if you found a certain question difficult, if you found like, there is this enlightenment moment when you see a question solution. So if you find anything very astonishing or anything that you want to like keep note of that question, keep that, and then when you're coming back to that question, you can mark all the good questions, and you can towards the end of the interview, sorry, towards closer to the interview, you can just revise those set of questions and the notes that you made. I think that really helps in revision, faster revision also. Fine. Help from me as a mentor, I think I'll just touch that, like I'll just get started on it because we also have a little bit of time crunch. Okay. Expectation from interviewer. Like if you don't do problem solving well, I think even if you are able to communicate your ideas, if you are able to understand the problem, ask the right clarifying question, come up with the good edge cases, come up with like at least some approach, and know the limitations of your approach, know the time and space complexity. I think those are very good, like plus points, even if you're not able to solve the entire problem optimally. So okay, I think that was a very large pause. Let me go back and like at least cover what we will be doing in our LTM session, and then I think we can always come back to the questions. Please, it's really heartening to see all the questions coming in. So please keep putting your questions in the chat. Okay, so I think on the basis of time, I'll just directly move to the part where we talk about. Yeah, so okay, I'll briefly talk about my experience with Microsoft. So with Microsoft, I think I had so in my fourth semester it started. I had a online coding test. At that time, it was not in fourth semester they will not expect you a lot, maybe some sort of trees and linked list questions, and then based on that I got a mentorship from Microsoft. So in the mentorship they gave us coding assignments, they also took mock interviews, although those mock interviews were not really really mock in nature. I mean, they did evaluate us very seriously on that, and based on that, when the company visited us on campus, there are two rounds usually for people. The written test, there usually you would see three questions. The three questions would be, I think it could range somewhere around like 3 to DP, like mostly easy to medium side of things. And then there is a group fry round. It used to be pre-COVID, where you had to, like I mentioned, right, these companies will ask you to code on a whiteboard, on a paper, and on a dock and everything. So yeah, so that used to be during the COVID, pre-COVID times, that they used to make us write the code on the paper, like from a pen. But now I think you can just the equivalent would be writing it on a dock. So yeah, those were the first two rounds, and people who did well in the mock interviews, they could skip these two rounds, and then we had another set of 2 to 3 technical interviews. Here also, I remember the questions being like around I think it was stacks or DP, or like somewhere around those topics, and then one HR round. And then I had like my internship offer. I had a very great experience of 2 months interning at Microsoft. And then since there was coding COVID time, and we were not really like in person in office, so usually they don't have, only on the basis of internship performance they gave us the offer. But that time they were having a technical interview even at the end of the internship. So I had one technical interview with my manager, right? And then I got the pre-placement offer. But so this is my experience with Microsoft. But like I mentioned, that I have had experience, like there have been stretches of 6 months, like 6 months to 1 year, where I was, actually on and off, I was practicing DSA, and I was interviewing with all of these FAANG and fintech and other product based companies, like even like other, not really in FAANG but other products based companies. So like if you want to talk about that to me, like you're always welcome. And even in our one-on-ones and everything, if you're targeting a specific company, I can let you know the entire loop. I can also help you with the exact resources that I use and what worked out for me, what did not work out for me, right? So yeah, I think it would be great that like you guys can leverage this platform to learn from my story. So okay, great. So now I think we move to how do I help my long-term mentorship mentees. So this is how what I've been doing with all of the mentees that I have currently. So first of all, I really help them with getting connected with the right resources. Like I mentioned, that there are so many things to prepare. You cannot, and more than that, more than having things to prepare, there are so many resources to prepare for anything. So what are the right set of resources? I think that will really save your time, because I have spent a lot of time to get to the right resource. Like if you go to a person and you ask, like if you go to 5 people and you ask for a certain topic, all of them will have like a varied opinion, and they might not have even went through the loop or cleared loop for that company. So for somebody who has already been through that experience, I think it will really help you to drill down to the resources and save your time there, so that you can focus on the right things. Now we can also have code along and problem solving sessions. You can have, like let's say I gave you, like let's say you said that, okay, I have practiced DP enough, but I'm not getting that really that confidence that I can, if you throw a question at me, then I'll be able to solve that. So what we can do is we can have a code along or a problem solving session where you give me a bunch of topics and I just randomly pick a question, and if you want to attempt it on your own, we can do that. Or I can actually hand hold you throughout the entire procedure. At least for the starters, I can handhold you throughout the entire procedure, that okay, this is what the question looks like, this is what the interviewer would be looking for, and this is how you are ideally meant to proceed. So we can do all of that. We can do project discussions. I can literally give you a walkthrough of all the projects that I have made personally and how they have worked for me, what were all the questions that were asked, what were the things that were focused on in all of these interviews, because nobody is going to ask you to share your screen and show your code base, right? The focus in the interviews on the projects is completely different, right? So what sort of questions are asked, how to prepare, like how to prepare a CV, how to so okay, I'll come to that maybe a little bit later. So right, so which projects to choose, which tech stack to choose, right? So I can and then when you're starting with a tech stack, all of a sudden you will not just go ahead and build an entire, let's say some web crawling app. You will not do that in one day. You have to get started handheld through some resources. Like even if you're learning React, there are few resources, that some boot camps that I took, right? So what are these resources and how much each resource benefits you, I think that will be really helpful for you. I also help my mentees. I mean, this is not something that I'm prospecting, I'm actually doing this with all the mentees that I have currently. So I give them time bound assignments. I mean, this again, up to your discretion. If you want to do it at your pace, that's also completely fine by me. But what my mentees usually prefer is that they have some time bound assignments. Like let's say we discussed, so for one mentee, I was like, they were really early on in their DSA journey. So they were just doing like pattern problems for now. So like I gave them actually some pattern based problems, and then we had a walkthrough, like a walkthrough of the entire solution. And we also discussed that why could they not come up like with this with that with the solution for that problem, or how could they come up with a certain solution. Like that contemplation, I think, after every problem that you solve is very important, right? And follow-ups for sure. Like I have also mentioned it on the profile that I will be available over chat. Like if something doesn't probably like require really a call bandwidth, we can just settle it over a chat. So right, and then like I mentioned, doubt solving questions, doubt solving sessions. And then last, very very important, I think, I personally have also struggled finding people to just proofread my CV. So it really helps to have somebody to do all these resume review sessions with you. a lot goes in, like from getting the first draft. I remember when I had created the first draft of my resume, and when it looked, actually when I was applying for, like, internship season, it was entirely different. Like, the template had changed, the wordings had changed, the what I'm mentioning on the resume had changed, what I'm not mentioning on the resume had changed, right? So there are so many things. And then, especially if you're talking about all these FAANG and big product companies, I think there's this very interesting fact which I also came to know very much later in the journey, that they use this because of the mass of the applications and everything. They use this software called as ATS, like it's an automatic system. Your before even your resume reaches a recruiter, it goes through this automated, like, AI based. I'm not sure how many companies use it, but of course, the companies who are getting millions of applications, they must be using it. That they go through this tracker and everything, and if your application or if your resume makes through that stage, and then it actually reaches a human eye. So how can you make your resume concise and, like, like, really ATS friendly? So I think these are some of the things that I also, and what to mention or not on the resume. Like, there is one more thing that I very much came to know later on, to have this personal portfolio and everything. So how can you not invest a lot of energy on, let's say, just building a personal portfolio, because that's not really a project for you, or if you want to take it up as a project only. So I think these are few discussions that really help. And resume review session, I cannot underrate, like, I cannot underrate at all. Like, that is the beginning of your process. Like, even if you are so well versed with DSA, you are so well versed with system design, if your applications are not going through, if you're not getting callbacks, I think that's really frustrating. And, like, that really, that gets very frustrating at points. So I think these are the ways that I really have, and like, I'll also keep helping my mentees with. Okay, so I think the next stage, I mean, you can be anywhere in this pipeline. So if you have already are very confident about your resume, and, like, you're already very confident about DSA, then I can more focus on the second part. But if you're starting with this journey, then I can more focus on this part. So you can be anywhere in the pipeline of this. So then, after that, we come to the application and interview stage. Like, I can help you with guidance on how and where to apply. There are few companies that are more, that are more responsive through their career portal itself. There are few companies that are more responsive through cold emailing the recruiters, right? For some companies, a good referral matters a lot. Some companies, a good referral might be, like, not that much of a big factor. I mean, they anyway look at your application, so you don't have to spend time to seek a referral, right? So yeah, so to understand that, and then company specific guidance, like I talked, right? So I can really share my experiences one on one, mock interviews, and then referrals from myself. Like, I can refer you in the company that I currently am, and also can help you get referrals for all the connections and friends that I have in other companies that you might be looking at. Salary negotiation, I think it's underrated, and it took me, like, for a fresher, it might not be that much relevant for you, but I think as a working professional, it becomes very relevant, because for me also, the salary negotiation has been, like I mentioned, like, I had, like, cleared and, like, gone through all of these loops and everything. So salary negotiation could actually be the make or break for you in a lot of scenarios. So yeah, so I think that's a very important step, and it is a skill. And I also came to know quite later in my journey, but I can really help you with whatever experiences that I've had till now. Okay, great. So towards the end, right? So these are the things that are standard things that I will be, like, following up on, and, proactively helping you with. But if there's anything from your end, if you just want, there is some career decision that you're looking at, there is some counseling, or there is some random doubt that you have, right? You can always sync up. Like, it's as easy just going on the platform and setting up a call with me. You can just, once you are enrolled into this long-term mentorship, anytime you can just go ahead and set up 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour call with me, and then we'll be talking about whatever that you want me to talk about. Like, it could be any career counseling thing, it could be any decision. Like, let's say you have two offers, and you have maybe 50-50 among them, and you want to really want some guidance from somebody on how to choose that offer, like, choose which offer to choose. I think that is also one good discussion to have. And like I mentioned, that there were long stretches when I was preparing and when I was going through this entire cycle. So I really understand how difficult it is to manage, especially if you are in a college or you are a working professional. There's always a side thing that you're managing with this preparation. Either you are managing your college or you are managing your day job, right? So it really gets very emotionally draining at times. I have personally felt it, and I really know, like, the entire phase. So yeah, so you can really reach out to me in those scenarios also, and I think I can really help you with discussions there, and maybe whatever reassurances and everything that you might be needing at that point. At the end, we will be setting up small achievable targets, and we will be tracking progress together. That way, I think you will, like I mentioned, that I think somebody was talking about consistency. I think these things will really, when you actually start seeing progress, right? I think these things will really help you. Uh, when you see progress, I think that gives you confidence and automatically builds consistency for you. I hope that makes sense. And okay, what I will do is, let me see. Right. So yeah, I think I'll just finish talking about the entire mentorship program, and then we can go. We can certainly go back to the questions, and I would love you guys to get all questions of yours clarified. Okay. So, okay, this is not the only place that we are meeting. You can just go ahead and book a trial session with me right after this session. In the trial session, like right now, I'm talking about things a little bit generically, like, like I'm talking a mix of students and working professionals, right? So, in the trial session, I will personally understand your background, like you as a person, which level you are from. We will make a plan, at least, like if you're if you're enrolling for 1 month, 2 months, 4 months, whatever time that you're enrolling enrolling for, we will make a plan and discuss your needs, and then uh, yeah, so identify the gaps and make a plan for how we can make you reach that goal in a certain time frame. And then as soon as after the trial session, you book the long term mentorship, then everything that I've mentioned before, I think all of that starts. And yeah, so I've also mentioned that like at least 2 to 3 follow-ups in a week. I am almost immediately available over chat for any of your queries. So yeah, so that's about that. And then yeah, of course it is all about practice. I would just say practice in terms of like I mentioned, it's not about number of questions, it's about after each question, do you feel that confidence that you learned something? If you are given that question, probably in the future you will be able to think something better than what you could think now. And second, on the mock interviews, I cannot stress enough, like on the mock interviews front, I think that really helps. And yeah, I think we can really achieve it. Like you and I can really work together to achieve that goal. Okay, fine. So maybe if you want to take a screenshot of this, you can just scan this QR code, go on the pre-placed website. And like I mentioned, this is not the only place that we are talking. We can talk on the trial session where we will be more focused towards you. I mean, you personally, where like what is your current level of preparation, what are the gaps, and how can we draft a plan for how long ever that you want this mentorship, like at least for the starting phase you want it for 1 month, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. Based on your needs, we'll draft that plan, and then from there we can go ahead. Okay. Okay, great. So fine, I think that's all I had. Now I will go ahead and answer the questions. Just a second. Okay. Yeah, I think about so I'll continue from here about increasing logic. So like I mentioned, right, for me how it happened was when I started practicing all these questions. After a point, I was able to see these patterns. Let's say if your question says that give me all the possible ways, or print all the possible ways of doing a certain thing. So when you know that, if it throws a keyword like okay, all the possible ways, then it might be that you have to explore all the options. So when it is asking about all the options, then backtracking might be one thing, right? You go to a certain place, you find a solution, or you don't find a solution and then you come back. So like if you start recognizing patterns like these, I think then like if you see a new question, you will have at least 2 3 approaches in your mind. I can give probably one more example. Let's say if a question says that give me the most optimal arrangement, like let's say in some question the order, it's an array question, and the in the order does not matter, and you have to reshuffle the array in some manner. So if the order does not matter, then what would be the most optimal way to arrange any array, right? Like you would mostly think about, first thing you should think about is if the order does not matter, maybe I would just want to sort it, right? Because after sorting there is a certain order to it, and now I can, rather than doing in n square comparison and anything, I can maybe do it in linear time, then n log n plus n. So yeah, you might want to look at, like you will start to recognize these patterns once you have done enough questions, and then like I mentioned, doing all the approaches for one question and writing them down, that if a question is like this, then probably these are the few approaches that came to my mind, and these are the approaches to solve it. Just take those quick crisp note. I think that really helps in your revision also. uh, Web development projects, I think I already mentioned. CRUD operations on some entity, database integration, APIs. I think if you have inculcated all of this, make it make it some real world problem. If it solves a real world issue, like not, you don't have to solve like a political issue. I mean, like if it's a blog post app, there is a real world scenario that it caters to, right? So I mean, it could be as good as a to do list also, but like some real world scenario, some problem that it might be solving. Okay. A domain that I suggest in terms of layoffs. Okay. I think layoffs is a very, I mean, it's a very sensitive topic, and it's a very uncertain topic, I think. So there's nothing that I can recommend as such. But I think for time being, these companies are pretty much stable. Like even for software engineering roles, I think uh, I think there will be some stability towards the end. So I think you can still work towards if you're preparing for a software engineering role, I think you can still work towards it. And uh, yeah, if you're interested in AIML, if you're not at all interested in AIML, then I would not just say that okay, AI is the future, then you must look at AI, even if you're not interested. But if you're even slightly interested, I personally also looked at AIML in the first year of my college. I was in the consulting analytics club where I did some, even my second year internship, which was based in machine learning, like it was based in computer vision. So I did give it a try. Then I found that maybe development is something for me. So if you're maybe in first or second year, I would highly recommend for you to at least explore this, and maybe you find that this is the right fit for you. I hope that answers your question. Okay. How to apply for Microsoft off campus? Microsoft off campus, I think they're pretty much responsive. I mean, of course, because of the bulk of applications, you might not be able to hear back, but the standard way to apply to all of these big tech companies is through their career portal. And do seek a referral. When you're seeking a referral, there are few things to look at. Probably in detail, yeah, in one-on-ones we can talk a little bit in details, like how do you reach out and like what exactly to include in your referral request. But do seek for a referral. I think especially for Microsoft, it really helps to up your resume as compared to others. I think uh, uh okay, are we overshooting on time, Sarthak? Like we do have still some questions, so I can go here.
So, Sakshi, you can keep on.
Okay, sure. uh Okay. Yeah, will the process be same if we apply off campus? I mean, the companies keep changing their process, but it will certainly be a mixture of DSA and HR interviews for freshers, and at least for Microsoft. And for some companies, it might be at least one. Like if you're applying abroad, it might be a system design interview, but they'll very much communicate to you it in time. So you don't really, like day one, you don't need to start preparing system design. You can focus on DSA, like core CS concepts and object-oriented programming and all of that. Okay. DSA courses, wise, I mean, not really a preference. There are a lot of, like, for me, it was a lot of like mixture of online resources also. But at that time, like I mentioned, that the GFG course was pretty much like free, so I took that up. But I think, yeah, but I think you can really start with interview bit. That's a very good resource. And apart from that, I did take some paid courses, which were very helpful. But yeah, I think you can look at them upon your discretion. And uh, yeah. uh Look at our project. I mean, they will not look at the code base. They will ask you questions more of around, yeah, like, let's say, why did you choose a certain tech stack, and questions around that. So there will not be like a code walkthrough. You must know the structure of your project, like where are the front end files, where are the back end file, what is the database, how is the database integration. But there will not be a like a code walkthrough or anything. Pricing is showing in dollars. I think probably the team will be able to help you with that. That should be, yeah, some, maybe some platform issue. Okay, I think they already answered them. Sorry. As a fresher, what can we put in experience section? Yeah, I get that. Maybe if you want, you can maybe get some internship through LinkedIn, or like for me, I get it through, at that time Internshala was active, so Internshala and LinkedIn I was looking at. But even if you don't have any experience, really you can skip that. Like for 1 or 2 years into college, they don't really like expect you to have a lot of experience. So maybe you can just showcase good 2-3 projects. I think that should be good. Suggestions for the upcoming placement season. I think, yeah, I mean, I'm so yeah, you can maybe just take like, since you are on a time crunch, you can just take this mentorship. And I think really I'll be able to give a focused one-on-one approach to, how you can tackle the whatever companies that might be coming on campus for you. So like, apart from that, like all the resources that I talked about, they still make sense. But if you want really on a time crunch, a personalized solution for you, then I think that you can really go for it, as it's just 2 months. Internships in third year system design question, like I mentioned, that mostly no, I don't think so. I only when I applied for this one company abroad, right? So they had a system design round, and there also it was figure outable. I mean, I had enough time to prepare. They gave me enough heads up, and that window of 2-3 weeks it was enough to prepare for that much system design. So I don't think you really need to prepare from day one. A complete newbie for to opt for one-on-one mentorship. So I mean, you don't have to, like, it's not like once you start with the mentorship you have to go ahead with 2 months or 3 months at a stretch, right? So once we start with the mentorship, like maybe you realize that, okay, I can help you with the resources, I can help you get connected with the right resources. And if you think that after first month, let's say there is some homework for you to do still, we can maybe take a break of 2-3 months, or like maybe 1 or 2 months, as per how much ever time that you need, and you can come back. But at least if you it will help you to understand your current level, and you will also understand what are you like, since you are a newbie, I really like empathize that there might be an overwhelming set of resources, and you might be very much constrained with like how much, where should I look at. So I think that first month can really help you set, because I have had a mentee myself very recently who was just very newbie. So I think the first month was very important and very very crucial for them to get connected to the right resources, get connected to the right path. And then maybe if you want to take a break of 1 or 2 months, like you need to, like you want to do some homework and you want to come back, then also that makes sense. So but yeah, I think to get you set on the right path so that you don't waste time at the start going through some, like, not so necessary resources, I think that would really be helpful. All right, I think I have answered all the questions, and we are also good uh, on time. Thank you so much, Shubham. Thank you. Okay. Are there any more questions? Feel free to put it on the chat. Otherwise, we are good. Uh, Okay, I will. So, in case you are facing any difficulties, maybe you are not able to scan the QR, or any difficulties with booking a session with me. I also put my LinkedIn here, so that you can just reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I can help you with like any of the logistic help also, in case you are facing any difficulty with booking a session.
Thanks, Sakshi, for conducting such a wonderful session. I think the audience really liked the session and they interacted with you. I hope for audience you were able to answer all their questions. And for any further interaction, we have shared the link